Hey there, and welcome to The Cutest Little Thing. I am Andrea, and I'm so glad you have joined me for today's video. If you love thrift flips, home decor, upcycling, DIYs, and all of the things, then you are at the right place, and I'm so glad you are here today. If you are new to my channel, welcome, and if you have been with me before, welcome back. I have some awesome projects in store for you today, so we will get right to them. Let's get started. For this project, we are going to be using scrap wood. I keep a little stash of scrap wood, so I went out and just grabbed 3 random pieces. They are different sizes, and I want to go in with the color Cucumber Ice, and this is a Dixie Belle Chalk Mineral Paint. Look at that really pretty color. At first glance, this color looks like an off-white, but as you paint with it and it begins to dry, it almost has a greenish, yellowish tint to it. I really love it. It's a beautiful color. So I went ahead and put a coat of that on, and I weren't going for full coverage. I didn't mind if some of the raw wood was left visible. I actually like that look because I was going to go back and distress these a little bit as well. So I just, as I painted on, I didn't worry about full coverage, and I only went in with that first coat. Chalk paint in itself is a thicker paint, but Dixie Belle especially, that's one of the reasons why I love it. It is a much thicker chalk paint, and it has awesome coverage. So it's a really good paint. And I went ahead and painted all around these wooden blocks, the front, back, and sides on all 3. Gave that a quick dry with my heat gun here. And see the look we got. I just love that look. It's a very distressed look. And again, if you do not like this look, you could just go ahead and do full coverage on your piece. I did want to add molds on to here. So I'm using the Birdsong mold in the IOD, and I'm using air dry clay to make my molds. So you just want to take a big chunk out, or all depending on the size of your mold. And you want to kind of squeeze and just pinch and kind of get out those creases in your clay. You can like roll it in your hands. It's almost like playing with Play-Doh. And sometimes I'll roll it in like a snake shape and press it into my mold. And sometimes I'll get it more flat, just all depending on my mold and the size of it and the shape of it and everything. So here, as you can see, I just sort of did a snake shape, kind of rolled it and pressed it into my mold. And you just want to kind of press down and do a sweeping motion at the same time to remove all of the excess clay out of the way, and just put that clay back in your clay container to use on another project. You can also, I like to take an old debit card or a gift card or something flat and use it to press down on my mold to help smooth it out, like I'm doing here. I'm using a Starbucks gift card. I just use it to press down and flatten, and then I'll just use it as a scraper and kind of scrape that excess clay away from the mold, and then you are ready to release your mold from the help me out here. I can't think of the word. You know what I'm trying to say. So just kind of bend that mold there, and it will come out, and you can kind of help it along and just pull. If you do, just be very careful so you don't break your mold. And there you go. There is our bird. And I like to attach my molds with E6000 glue. I just put some on the back, and I take my finger and spread my glue around the back, and you want to be sure your glue covers the entire mold, even all the way to those edges, because you don't want anywhere on the back not having glue, because you might have trouble with your mold adhering to your piece. But I use my finger to spread your glue if you don't like to use your finger. And you can see I was having so much trouble with my glue right here. I had glue like in the little opening that was hardened. So I had to work and work. And if you have that trouble, I take my wire cutters like I'm doing here, and I'll kind of cut away the dry glue. And I'll also use it to squeeze and open up the tip of my glue container. So there's your little tidbit of helpful information, hopefully, if you ever have that struggle as well, and just tear away that dry glue, because y'all know what a headache that can be when your glue dries on you and you can't get it out. And finally, after I got my glue all good to go, I squeezed it on the back of my mold and used my fingers. But what I was saying, if you don't want to use your fingers to spread that glue around on your mold, you can use a chippy brush or a popsicle stick or something like that just to get it spread around your mold. So I placed that one down on my biggest block of wood. If y'all haven't guessed by now, we are making a set of pumpkins. I love making pumpkins with scrap wood, and when fall comes around, I love to turn just about anything into a pumpkin. I look at anything and I see a pumpkin. So are y'all like that too? I thought I would add another mold on this one up higher, so I went out in the yard and I got me some sticks, just some random sticks, and I used my wire cutters to cut them the length I needed them to be. And I took several and cut, and I decided to just kind of place 2 random pieces there, like a tree branch, and I hot glued them down using just a regular hot glue stick. I placed the one down, and I do decide to go back and add a second one, but here is where I was starting my second mold. And this clay, I left it out a little too long the last time I used it, so it was starting to get a little bit hard. It was still plenty pliable, and I could still work with it, but I would just take my water bottle and spritz some water on it and kind of work it into the clay, and that really helped out a lot. So if that happens to you and your clay kind of starts getting a little bit hard, now sometimes it gets a little too far gone and you just have to throw it out. But in this case, I could just wet it a little, and it helped it where I was able to still use that clay. And same technique, just pressed it in the bird mold I wanted to use and pressed it down, removed it out of the mold, and then I kind of placed it up like it was perched on that little stick, or on that branch rather. And you can take the edge, your fingernail, and kind of go around the edge and to smooth it out. And that's kind of what I did. And his little tail was hanging over that stick, but I thought it would be fine once the clay dried hard and everything. It wouldn't be an issue. And I was right. Once it dried and everything, the tail hanging over the stick like that was fine. And this is where I was adding that other little stick, the second stick. I just kind of added it underneath, and that was also helping support the little bird's tail. It kind of gave it something to land on. So I thought that was super cute. And then I just took that same color that I painted the wood with, the cucumber ice, and I went ahead and painted over the birds as well. I just took a small paintbrush and painted over those bird molds with it. I put that one to the side to dry. Now to work on the other piece of wood, I went in my transfer stash and found these black and white transfers. And I thought that it would match my little pumpkin set really well. So I cut the one I wanted out. I believe I got these transfers from Amazon, but I will check. And if I'm able to find it, I will put it in the description for you. But I was seeing what I was doing here. I just put tape over the transfers I didn't use, because when you have small transfer pieces like that, it's really helpful to kind of tape them together where your backing doesn't come apart from your clear piece. I did want to seal my paint, because transfers go on so much better if it is on a sealed surface. So being I had painted with Dixie Belle chalk paint, it didn't have that sealer in it, I went in with DIY's Big Top to seal in that paint before I applied my transfer. I've dried that really well. You want to make sure your paint is dry, and you want to be sure your sealer is good and dry before you put down that transfer. And you just use that little tool that comes with your transfer packet, and you rub back and forth, and your transfer will begin to adhere to your surface while you slowly lift up on that piece of clear film. And work nice and slow because you don't want to lift up too fast and tear your transfer. And if you lift up on that clear film and a piece of your transfer is still stuck, just simply place it back down, rub a little bit more with your transfer tool, and pull up once again. And then you want to varnish that in, or burnish, did I say that right? Burnish that in, and you're all set. And that was good to go. And I did seal that transfer in with clear wax. Now for our third and final pumpkin. Initially, I wanted to go in with this stamp. It is a stamp of little birdies sitting on a branch, and I thought that would be perfect. It would match our big pumpkin perfect with the little birdie sitting on the branch. But when I inked it up and I stamped it down on the wooden block, it didn't show up as well as I would like. So I know I could have restamped and stamped it again, but instead I grabbed a different stamp out of my stash. I got it inked up, and I got this one off of Amazon. It's got little birdies on it as well with this writing. I really like this stamp. I pressed that down, and I liked how it turned out better. I also decided to add a little piece of branch to the second largest pumpkin as well. I just kind of cut it to fit down on that right corner. I hot glued it down as well. And I made another little birdie using that bird mold. And I placed him right on top of that little branch, like he was sitting on the branch. And I just thought that added a cute little element to that one as well. And with the transfer we used with that writing, it went with the other one we did with the little writing stamp. So they're all kind of tying in and going together perfectly. I'm just loving how this set of pumpkins is turning out more and more. So again, I went in with that cucumber ice to paint that mold as well. Back to our large pumpkin, I wanted a little bit of black in the pumpkin, so I got out my black chalk paint. I'm using Waverly in the color ink. I grabbed me a chippy paintbrush, and I dabbed it into my black paint and offloaded. You don't want a lot of paint on your brush when you're doing this technique. And I just carefully went over my birds, and it grabbed the paint and just added more detail on the birds. And I also brushed over the pumpkin itself as well, just dipping into my paint and offloading so there wouldn't be too much paint on my brush. And I kind of did the edges a little bit heavier than the middle part of it. And then I just got the birds and all in between those little branches that we added too. I decided to grab a little paintbrush, and I wanted to kind of outline or highlight the birds. So I went around, I dipped it in that same black chalk paint and just carefully went around each bird. And I just thought it made those bird molds pop to highlight them like that, and just created a contrast with them and almost gave them more of a 3D look. And I also dry brushed some of that black chalk paint onto the other pumpkins as well. And I just thought that added a little something extra and tied them all in, and also gave them more of a distressed look. Now it's time to embellish these pumpkins. First, I grabbed some Spanish moss and hot glued onto the little branches on the pumpkins, just to add those natural elements in there. Then I had to add stems to the pumpkins. I went to my wood stash and found these little teeny pieces of cedar, just some cedar wood. I love the natural wood tone, but I wanted to darken it just a little bit. So I took some DIY dark wax and just brushed on very heavily that wax. And I did that to all three stems. I wanted them all to be the same. And simply hot glued each one onto each pumpkin. I just sort of kind of matched them how, I thought they looked the best based on the size and the shape for each pumpkin. Look how cute that's looking. And I also wanted to add some lace. So I just took, this is lace I get in bulk off of Amazon. And I just took a piece and tied a simple bow. Just a simple loop bow. And I just kind of played with it to get the loops the size that I wanted them. And to get the tails the size that I wanted them. And I just cut them to the size that I needed, and I hot glued one on each pumpkin. And on the big one, I put the bow on the side because I didn't want it to cover up the bird at the top. And look how cute these turned out. I absolutely love these. And like I said, I just love making these wooden pumpkins. The possibilities are endless on how you can do them. Let me know what you think of these. Don't forget, I am now a retailer of the Sweet Pickins Milk Paint. You can message me over through my Facebook business page for all of your milk paint orders. Thank you so much. For this project, I have a photo box. It has been in my stash a while. I thrifted it at my local Goodwill. I think it was $2 or $3.99, but I love the style of it and everything. I definitely wanted to change the color. I actually did part of this project on one of my lives over on Facebook. And if you are not following me over on Facebook, head over, give me a follow. And I usually go live on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 1:30 Eastern. So I'm going in with the color Gravel Road in Dixie Belle. And Dixie Belle is a chalk paint. I did 2 coats of that. I'm giving it a good dry. I didn't worry about the inside. I just left it that wood tone. We are going to be filling our photo box. And I want to make it where it can be used, in different ways. It can just be used as a decor piece in your home, or you can use it what it's for. So I have this beautiful print I purchased from an Etsy shop, and I will include that shop in the description below. I printed it on with my regular inkjet printer on regular computer paper. And as you can see, I kind of measured where I needed to tear my paper for it to fit on the front of my photo box. And I like to do the tear method. Sometimes I will cut, but for this project in particular, I wanted to tear it, and I'll just wet with my paintbrush. I'll dip it in water and wet the paper and then just go around and tear it. I applied Mod Podge to the back of my paper and then very carefully applied that to my photo box. You just want to be sure you line it up and get it straight. And I like to use a piece of saran wrap to smooth out any wrinkles or creases that try to form in my paper. And I like to seal my images with clear wax. I will also heat set them with my heat gun, but I also like to go in with clear wax. I'm using Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax here in the clear, and I will use that as well to seal my paper. And I like using that method better than Mod Podge over the front of my paper. And I also went ahead and used it to seal all of my chalk paint in, because Dixie Belle chalk mineral paint does not have a built-in sealer. So you want to be sure you seal in your paint as well. After that, I used Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in the brown, and I wanted to dirty up the piece a little bit and kind of grunge it up some. So I did go over it as well with the brown wax. For the other side, I decided I wanted to add some molds. So I'm coming in with IOD's Birdsong mold, I believe it is. But I'm using air dry clay. And you take a piece of clay and you sort of roll it in your hands and make a snake type shape and press it down into your mold. And then I just kind of press down and do a sweeping motion to get the excess clay removed out of my mold. And very carefully remove that mold. And here you can see here how that looks. And I went ahead and painted my mold with that same color Gravel Road. I went ahead and painted it before I glued it onto my box. And I did use E6000 glue to get that painted down on my box, glued down on my photo box. I just applied some to the back, and I will take my finger and spread that glue around. You want to be sure your glue is spread all the way over your mold, all the way to the edges. And if you don't want to use your finger, you could use like a chippy paintbrush or a popsicle stick or just something to get that glue spread around. Carefully apply it where you want it, and then I like to take and press down around the edges just to be sure that mold adheres really well to my project piece, because you don't want a space between your mold and your project piece. And I did kind of touch up my molds after that first coat of chalk paint dried. I needed to go in with a second coat and do just a little bit of touch up, so carefully I went in with a small paintbrush and did that. After that dried, I went in with my Dixie Belle's brown wax once again, and I brushed over those bird molds very carefully. I just kind of dabbed some on my brush and offloaded it a bit, and then I went over my photo box a little bit more, adding a little more wax. For the part that had the place for the picture, I was going to just leave it, but then I decided I would add just a little something there, and then the buyer of this piece could still remove this and put a family photo or another photo of their choice. But I didn't want to just leave it plain, so I took a piece of muslin cloth and I cut it the size of that little photo rectangle section. I just lined it up to trim it so it would be the size that it needed to be. And then I hot glued that down to that backing piece. And then I had this stencil, thankful, grateful, and blessed. And I lined up the part that says blessed, and I wanted to stencil that onto my muslin cloth. And I used that same Dixie Belle color in the color Gravel Road to do that. I used a stencil brush. I just grabbed my stencil brushes from Walmart or either off of Amazon. If you don't have a stencil brush, you just want a brush that's not too soft, and you want it to be a flat brush so that those bristles don't go underneath your stencil and cause smudges and smears. And when I stencil on, I like to do a back and forth method as well as just kind of stipple on. You want to be careful so those bristles do not go underneath your stencil. And just work slowly and carefully, keeping a hand down on your stencil at all times so it doesn't move. And you can tape it in place if you would like with some painter's tape, and that can be very helpful as well. After I got that stenciled on and the paint dried really well, I took my Dixie Belle Gray Grunge and a little blender brush, and I just wanted to kind of give that cloth a distressed look. So I got some of that wax on my brush and offloaded a bit, and just very carefully went over all of that cloth around the word blessed. I was being careful just in case there was a part of the paint that wasn't quite dry yet. And I just did that until, I got the look that I liked. And if you didn't want that distressed look, you could just skip that step and leave it the clean look. So I cleaned up the piece of glass that went in for the photo section. I put that back and then placed my little piece back in and got that secured in there. And look how cute that looks. So this piece can be reversible. You can leave it like on that side, and then when the fall comes around, just flip it over to display the other side. And of course we had to fill it with some goodies. I am going to leave these pieces in here to sell it, but the buyer can most definitely just, take that arrangement out if they want to use this section for storage or a little remote caddy or to keep their photos in. But I just had some scrap fabric and ribbon that I placed in just to kind of fill some space. And then I added some floral foam, and then I added a piece of burlap. I like to buy my burlap in bulk off of Amazon. I have these spindles here. I purchased these from Emily's Upcycled Home. I decided I wanted to paint them white. So I'm going in with Rust-Oleum's chalk paint in the color Linen White. And I gave them a good coat, and then I did go in with a second coat, And I wanted to darken them a little bit, so I'm using my Sweet Pickins beeswax in the dark. And with my blender brush, I got that wax applied on, and that's also sealing my paint as well as giving me a little bit of a dirty, aged look as well that I love. I got that applied, and there's the difference there. If you like the brighter white, you could skip that step and just seal, another way or with some clear wax. And I just tied those two little spindles together with a piece of jute string and then applied a little piece of wheat and just stuck those in the box. And then I have these little fall florals I got off of Amazon. I will include those in the description as well. I used my wire cutters to cut that pick apart. I like to cut my floral picks apart. They're just easier to work with that way, and you can better customize your piece. I also had these burlap pumpkins in my stash. I added those as well as some of these little, I'm not really sure what these are, but they always come in the fall florals, and that just added a little pop of color to match the front of our photo box. And y'all, I just love how this turned out. I hope you love it too. Drop me a comment and let me know what you think of this one. Okay, friends, we have reached the end of today's video. I hope that you have enjoyed these projects. Please leave me a comment. Let me know your favorite. Let me know what you think. And if you are new to my channel today and you like what you see, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. And those who have been with me before, I'm so glad to have you again. I appreciate all of your support for my channel. I hope you all have a blessed week, and I will see you on the next video. Bye for now, friends.